Call on Government. Order of the day number 4.
Harmful Digital Communication Bill interrupted debate on first reading.
Members, we are on the Harmful Digital Communications Bill first reading, and Gareth Hughes has the call. He has 8.5 minutes remaining. It's the 5th call.
Well, thank
Gareth
you, Mr.
Hughes.
Speaker. Kia ora. Ngamihinui kia koutou. Kia ora. Something about Green MPs being interrupted tonight, and I'm pretty glad we didn't see the Attorney-General do that, the International Court of Justice. But he did do a fantastic job on that occasion. Mr. Speaker, so when I was interrupted, we were talking about the Harmful Digital Communications Bill, a bill the Green Party supports, something we see a real need for. We also look at it as a bit of a good example of when we can be drafting laws for the modern internet age, laws which relate directly to the internet age in which we live now. So the Green Party are proud to support. Obviously, we don't stand on the side of bullies. We oppose bullying. We want to see a rational, smart and effective use. Now, Mr. Speaker, if there's one bully in this House, we know where she is sitting, don't we, Mr. Speaker? And when we're talking about bullying, we see bullying not only in parliamentary locations like this, not only on the street and in the media, but we also see it online. And what we see is some pretty nasty bullying on venues like Twitter. And, Mr. Speaker, I'm not going to talk about the member Maggie Barry when it comes to bullying, because there's some irony. There is some irony when this bill is introduced by the Minister Judith Collins. Now, if I can think of a single minister or member of this Parliament who probably bullies more than anyone else on Twitter and online, it's that minister. So there's some irony there, but we all like to work with the minister, work with the government to make sure we have a robust, effective legislative solution. And we think it is high time that we actually looked at legislation in this area. Obviously, everyone knows bullying's been happening probably as long as humans been around. I'm not going to bore the House with tales of my pretty extensive bullying, being the victim, of course, Mr. Speaker, during primary and high school. It's always happened, but what we're seeing is a different kettle of fish. In the internet age, what you can see is anonymity. You can see imagery and videos posted without the victim's knowledge or approval, but also the pervasiveness. It can stay online, and despite perhaps embarrassing video material, as we've seen so graphically with the Roastbusters scandal, is that sometimes once the material's up, it's virtually impossible to ever get down because it's been copied and shared so much. So it is important that we do design our laws to work for 2013, and we know that some of our bullying laws haven't been up to scratch. They were written in a pre-internet environment. It's time to modernise our laws. I've got to say, Mr. Speaker, I did have a bit of a chuckle because I think this might be unprecedented in the sense it's the first bill ever to use viral in the explanatory statement, talking about potential viral videos to global audiences. Interesting to see that word used in legislation. And I think it's also important to point out that it's not the internet's fault that we're seeing internet bullying and bullying on social media sites. It's not the internet's fault. The internet is simply a platform, but I think members might get the wrong sense. And I think it's important we go into the Select Committee deliberations with that front of mind. Because the internet is simply an enabler. It's a fantastic tool. It's shaping our global society and economy. And what we shouldn't be doing is curbing that openness, that freedom which makes it so powerful, on some crusade to stop something which has been happening forever, of course. Now, of course, it's nothing new, as I've said, but what we see is when you look at the data in this country, I understand from the Law Commission, 1 in 10 New Zealanders have experienced harmful communication on the internet. I guess when you look at NetSafe, who do fantastic work, when you look at the regulatory impact statement, they only deal with around 75 complaints of cyberbullying every year, so not a large amount, but I'm sure for those 75, Mr. Speaker, it's had profound consequences and has had a huge difference to their life. So the Green Party supports this. We look forward to the Select Committee process. We urge people, both people who have experienced bullying in their lives, to make a submission, particularly if it's online. We want to see a healthy society where our kids primarily are protected. We want to look after them. We want to empower parents, who I think even in the internet age with legislation such as this before us will always play a critical role when it comes to bullying. We want to give kids the skills, the experience to be able to deal with bullying, but I acknowledge in the internet age sometimes you need a remedy. Now, under the status quo, the only remedy a person has if, say, infringing content is posted online pretty much is to go to court, which is a costly, time-consuming and quite a daunting enterprise for bullying victims. So setting up this new Communications Tribunal with a Communications Commissioner as a remedy to try and persuade ISPs, for example, or third-party content providers to remove the infringing material, I think is a good, cost-effective, hopefully efficacious solution which will make a difference. Obviously, the ability to still go onto the court for criminal charges is still a potential remedy, but it's good to be able to save time and hopefully get that material down as fast as possible using the Communications Tribunal. We note in the regulatory impact assessment the costs are incredibly low. We're looking on the order of, I think, around $115,000 per annum, Mr. Speaker. So, not an insignificant sum, but a sum which is manageable and hopefully will make a real difference for people as they go about their lives. We note the safe harbour provisions for those people hosting content and that they are protected under statute if they remove the infringing material based on a complaint, which we think is good. We'll be looking for the detail in Select Committee exactly how that's going to be used. The fishhook I'll be looking at in particular is the crux of the legislation, which is this new offence, what's called a new communication offence, which obviously can be taken to the tribunal or ultimately up to the court. Now, the offence is to cause harm. Now, quite a broad definition, and some members in this House no doubt have caused harm to political opponents. Other members might have, part of their campaigning for a more progressive or better country, caused harm to a potential polluter or criminal. So, Mr. Speaker, it's quite a wide definition, and we'll be looking at how that's going to apply in detail. Because obviously in a free and open country with robust rights of freedom of speech, we don't want to be constraining freedom of speech because someone's feelings might get hurt, and the new cyberbullying provides a more cheap and fast way to get satisfaction, as they'd say. We also want to see protections for other legitimate forms of freedom of speech, such as for parody or satire, which is something I've attempted to do in the copyright sphere. So what we want to do is protect legitimate victims. We don't want to give people a new legal means to try and stifle free and open democratic speech. That's what we'll be looking out for, but we'd like to acknowledge the work of the Law Commission, the work of the government, and welcome the Select Committee process. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Kia ora.
Honourable Kate Wilkinson.
Thank you.